Welcome back to the Nightly News Podcast. We are so very fortunate to be joined here today by Norm Geary. Welcome, Norm.
How you doing, Professor Miller?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. This is actually very interesting and fun for us because we have the opportunity to do something we've been wanting to do for quite some time, doing this news podcast. Norm, I did want to just point out before we do get into the news today, did you know that your first news podcast is one of the highest rated podcasts we've had to date?
No, I didn't notice that, but I will check it.
You know, it's funny because these will be a little bit quicker, a little bit more compact, and this is going to be going out on Labor Day, so those of you enjoying your day off can get caught up with some of the things that are going on, that have been going on at Central Penn, but also some of the things that we have coming up, a couple of big events coming up during week 10 of our term. So Norm, let's hear what you got for us today.
Well, I'd like to start off by talking about something we had on Wednesday, August 10th, 2016. President and CEO of the Leadership of Harrisburg came on campus for a common hour, and the topic was getting beyond the average to find your excellence. And this was a real great common hour because what it did is it was a topic that gives students the purpose and the information to think outside the box. Job skill we all need. And it also included a scholarship, and the student was Angela Frawley, and she was presented this scholarship by Una Martone, who is the president of her own scholarship. So it was not only an informative topic, but it also was a tribute to one of our great accounting students as well.
I had the fortune to be able to attend these local leadership series events that we're doing every single term here at the college, and to be perfectly honest with you, and no disrespect to anyone else who's ever done it, including friend of the podcast, Dr. Karen Scalfaro, this was one of my favorites because what she was actually talking about is something that, in my opinion, really resonated with the audience. You know, I teach a lot of first term, second term, freshman students, and one of the things that, I don't want to say common, but one of the things that in my opinion happens quite frequently is this attitude of just kind of getting by is okay. And I'm not sure if for what the reasoning behind that is, but to be perfectly honest with you, I think that Una's message really had the opportunity to resonate with the students here because she just made the point and hammered it home. Being average is not going to make you be successful. It's not going to breed excellence. And she actually made the point, you know, and I'm paraphrasing here, showing up is half the battle. Being on time is half the battle, you know, and of course, as we all know, certainly timeliness to deadlines is important in the professional world. Timeliness to being on time for work is something that's extremely important in a professional setting. So I don't know, I was just really blown away by the discussion that she had, and I really thought it resonated with our students. So I don't know, how do you feel?
I think it was good information, and job skills especially are important going into the job market today because if all the students are starting out with the same GPA, you have to have something outside the box to separate yourself. So I think the common hour was, as you mentioned, really awesome. That resonated with the students, and we need more of those.
Well, and I can't wait. And it is something that certainly Adrian does work on bringing in each and every term. So look forward to future local leader lecture series.
And that's an awesome message, Professor Miller, and I know the students at Central Penn will definitely be agreeing with that.
Excellent. Norm, what is your following story?
Well, I'm kind of excited about what you have going on September 6th from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock with your workshop, LinkedIn, The Time Is Now, in Milano Room 13. And I really appreciate that you're having this workshop because all students really need to be educated on LinkedIn. And with your workshop, you're not only going to educate the students on LinkedIn, but you'll also assist those who already have accounts to enhance their knowledge and to enhance their skills how to navigate through LinkedIn and give them tricks and secrets how to do that.
You know, I had Nasir on. I was actually the guest in our last podcast, and Nasir was the host, and we had the opportunity to talk about this in a little bit of detail. So I encourage everybody to go back and check out that podcast. I do want to point something out, and it was something that a point that you just made here. You know, I don't want it to be necessarily just people who maybe already have an account. What I would suggest would be I want it to be everyone. This is going to be approachable for those who have never even heard of LinkedIn. Also for those who do have a LinkedIn account, just aren't sure what to do with it. So if you are interested in LinkedIn whatsoever, this workshop is for you. The best that I can tell, I've already received a lot of positive feedback for the upcoming workshop, so I'm a little nervous that the room that I've selected is going to be large enough. So the one piece of advice I will give you if you're interested in coming down to see this is get there early, because 4 o'clock starts, I start, and I'm telling you, if you show up even close to 4, you might struggle to find a seat. So that is Tuesday, September 6th from 4 to 6 in Milano 13. LinkedIn, the time is now.
And I really appreciate that, Professor Miller, that you're doing this for us students on the campus, because once they get into their internships and then they have to do job pursuit, they're going to really appreciate the message that you're giving them.
And I don't mean to repeat what I'd said previously, so I'm going to try to steer clear of some of the points I was making on our previous podcast. But LinkedIn is really a lot more than, a lot of people just think it's an online resume. And while I suppose that's one of the functions of LinkedIn, there's so much more that goes into it. The job board, Norm, is, in my personal opinion, one of the best job boards that exists. And I love the fact that people are able to use LinkedIn for the job board. In fact, I would even suggest when it comes time for you to take the next step, that maybe you seek out some jobs on your LinkedIn profile. Let me turn it back over to you here for a second. What was it that I said that really got you inspired to do your LinkedIn profile in the manner that you have? Because you've spent a lot of time on yours.
Well, I think what you mentioned in the class that I had with you, how important it is to have a business presence. And if you're going to a college campus and you're taking a course in communications, you need to reflect that. And you really stressed the importance of having that presence, because employers are looking at LinkedIn right now. The resume is an introduction, but it's LinkedIn that drives the point home, who you are as a person and what you're doing actively today.
Obviously, you've been paying attention because you made a wonderful point there. All right, what else do you have for us? What else is coming up?
Well, I'm really excited about the Poetry Slam. Professor Maria Chow and the Central Penn e-zine literary magazine, and incorporating her English 330 Contemporary Writers of Color students, will be hosting the Poetry Slam on September 7th, and it'll be at 7 o'clock at the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. The best part about it is they're not only going to have the slam, but they also have prizes involved. So students can win prizes as well. And they'll have judges, and they're not judged just on the quality of the poem. They have to have a stage presence. So I would recommend, especially students that have that writing ability, want to express themselves, $100 for the first prize. $50 for the second prize, and even the third prize at $25 is really a great thing. So if you want to be a part of the slam, email CENTRALPEN CentralPenn.edu. And make sure you include your name, your major, and the name of your poem, and prepare 2 poems, just in case there's a sudden death round and it's down to the last 2 finalists. We're going to have fun. Please participate.
Norm, I do want to follow up with this. You're somewhat of a poet yourself.
I've been published on numerous occasions. I actually remember some of the poetry workshops and poetry events that Professor Maria Chow was at. Matter of fact, I met her and another professor who's not on this campus anymore, Shashawn Dial, and we had a lot of fun. So it's really nice to get back into the swing of things, but I'm more of a backseat driver on this one. I'm there to enjoy and watch the students reach that level of greatness.
Well, and hopefully you can always do a brief follow-up for the media club.
And I'm excited about that as well, and I will definitely do that.
Norm, one of the things that we discussed on our last news podcast was the concept, and this is certainly not a new concept, nor do we claim that it is, of the rising cost of student textbooks. So one of the things that I wanted you to talk about here today is what are some other news stories, other reactions? Because for most, now of course we run 4 11-week terms, but for most, many students have either already started back to college or are getting ready to start just after Labor Day. I would love if you'd follow up with us about the story that you talked about last time about the increasing prices of student college textbooks.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because as college students, that seems to be one of our biggest challenges, the cost of education, targeting in on the cost of student books. And doing a follow-up, as you mentioned, the New York Times, in its article, putting a dent in a college cost with open source textbooks. While the price of education is between $1,200 and $1,300 for 4-year schools, depending on the 4-year school, students are now delaying purchasing books. They're falling behind in their classes because they're not getting books at all. And some students, even though it's not a acceptable practice, are even copying pages of textbooks from other students.
Now, my question is you made a point about a number in that article, and I know that you quoted it because I read the article. This is my question. It varies so much depending on program. In fact, I've actually talked to some of the health sciences students here that say they're spending north of that per term. So, I mean, at what point is, and this is, I'm just asking your personal opinion, and from a student's perspective, at what point is this bubble, if you will, going to burst? At what point are schools and students going to take a stand against the corporate publishers of these textbooks? And as I'm sure that most of you know, because you can look on the side of a textbook to see, there's only about 4 to 5 major textbook publishers. Of course, there are several fringe ones, but I'd say a fair 80 to 90% of the students' textbooks are coming from a very small group of individuals. Where do you envision this going down the road?
Well, actually, Professor Miller, schools are now stepping up to the plate. Some colleges, there's a movement where, with the open source, the University of Minnesota is a classic example, has a library of 160 titles that are now available. Rice University has a nonprofit foundation offering over a dozen titles, focusing in on introductory courses, and now are producing more titles as well. So with the open source topic on the table now, schools are now stepping up and trying their best with the open source libraries to cut student costs.
That's very interesting. In fact, that's, especially with the nonprofit organization, that's the first time I've ever heard of anything like that. I know that some colleges, sort of in a separate direction, are trying to get their faculty to start maybe not writing books, but writing chapters of books that can be used in class without the need for cost from the students. I think that this is certainly something that we want to continue to monitor, Norm, and I hope that you're going to be coming back next term to continue doing some of these news podcasts, because I really think that you found yourself a niche here with the nightly news, that's for sure.
Well, I'm actually excited that you gave me the opportunity to do the newscast. And one of the best things that I like about doing the newscast is the interaction that we both have to educate the student body of Central Penn. And once we tap into this source that we have and get more followers and listeners on board, I think this will be a great thing for not only yourself and myself, but for Central Penn and the student body as well.
Well, as I'm sure, and we try to temper everybody's expectations in the club, but hey, we all have to start somewhere, right?
That is correct, and we are happy to have you on board with us and give us the navigation that we need.
We all, as a whole club, I think that we could not be any happier with where our first year has brought to us, with many new things coming up on the horizon. So we'll have to tune back in the beginning of the fall term to find out a little bit more about some of the other crazy news that's going on here on the Central Penn campus.
And I'm excited to hear that too, because we can only go forward from this point now.
That's right. Well, for Norm Geary, news correspondent, I am Professor Paul Miller. For this month's news segment, we'll get back at you in October for some more Central Penn news and higher education news. So for Norm Geary, this is Professor Miller signing out. Thank you for listening to the Nightly News Podcast.